One that I find that I tell my daughter a lot that I love because I feel like my dad would always tell it to me was, it's something like, the devil whispered in her ear, like, beware of the storm. And she whispered back, I am the storm. I share this with students that I was lost for many years, like my lower elementary, like being reflective, like as I've grown. I went into school too young. I was like a 4-year-old, and I was consistently behind until I didn't realize I was behind until about 4th grade. And I specifically remember being like, all right, Red Robins, Blue Jays, like what's happening here? And it took me a long time to bridge that gap, because I think the way school was when I was growing up, people were like, oh, well, that it just is what it is. But once I had that like awareness and recognition, I was like, no, I want to learn. I'm just missing some foundational things. I think I wasn't mature enough to launch when I did. And then when I remember things clicking, I remember pivotal teachers really like taking time. Like I specifically remember in 5th grade when I read Bridge to Terabithia and did history projects, like this woman was like magical. And I really remember like some high school teachers who, did that same thing. And in college, there was a woman, Mary Hoyt, who just did that. And they created like somebody who had like a bad experience, into somebody who loved learning and had the confidence to really tackle it and bridge gaps and go further than I think anybody would have thought imaginable. So like when I think of my experience, I tell students, I'm like, I know your struggle. Like it is hard and those feelings associated with it. I said, but if you want it, like you can do it. We read these things, and inside of them are other people's narrative, real sometimes, fictional sometimes. And we read these and we examine them to connect, the thoughts, the feelings, the ideas, the experience to our own and to those that exist in the world, so that we can learn about other people and places and about ourselves. I like to really connect it like to that global thing, and I also like to teach kids that really can't experience everything, and you can learn empathy by just reading other people's stories. Like there's so much to be learned from a story. So that's what we do. We look at these stories and we unearth everything that's there to learn and to connect with our past, with our present, will it exist in the future, and then how to communicate those ideas out, normally it's like through discussion and oral tradition, because that's how we've told stories for years. Now through written communication, how can we keep this tradition going to explain and learn about ourselves through our own writing, and to continue that forward for like future generations. I feel like I'm learning stuff all of the time. People tell me I bring a lot of patience. Like I'm a very patient person. And I think that because I'm patient, like I can let students come to the realizations on themselves, like even though it's sometimes that long, drawn out. So I think like, and with patience comes that bit of kindness, so it really gives students the ability to have that wiggle room. I like why. Why is dangerous. We joked, I've worked in schools where like the word why, and then there was like a no over it, because to ask why can get you into a lot of trouble sometimes. I like the why. The motivation behind it is always really interesting. You have to be willing, and you have to have an open mind. And when you ask why, if you know how like little kids do that, like why, right? It can lead you to thoughts like, that you might not have had before. Why is racy. I like it. Did you do the best you could with what you had in that moment? Because I'm perpetually like, was that enough? Was it enough? Are you doing enough? I feel like that's a pressure I feel as a teacher. So every day I feel like I'm reflective in that way, and I have to remind myself, it's like, well, for what I had in that moment, it was probably enough. I don't know if I ever feel accomplished. I feel like my goals are continually being like, increased and what's next and what's higher, so I don't know. That's a tough one, because I don't know if I ever feel like, all right, I got that. I did that as well as I could. I feel like there's always more growth to be had, personally. Oh, to be real. I think when I first started, I felt like I have to be like this image of what I think a good teacher is, or I have to act like I know it all, because if I don't, then I'm failing them in some capacity, and they see right through that. And you have to be real and authentic and own it, because then they feel safe and comfortable, and they'll do that with you, and then you can start going places.